So that has since been passed, so we will officially get on board with this.
Okay.
So this has
That was my
technically
question.
been through committee, but it has been resolved, and now it's up to our
Thank you.
consideration.
So are there any questions on this one? Mr. Whitman?
Where do I start? This is in my district. I'm pretty familiar with what's going on with it. I have a lot of concerns with it and where it's ended up. It's a local business. We want to do everything to try and help the local businesses. I'm afraid about stuff like this setting a precedent for the future. This is not the only business in Cayuga County that is not happy with their assessment, or the only property owner in Cayuga County that is not happy with their assessment. Is this going to set a precedent for the future of saying, all I need to do is threaten to sue or sue to get my assessment lowered? I'm also concerned about this saying the local assessors don't know their business, they don't know what they're doing. You know, if we're gonna overstep them and say, no, you're wrong, this is what it should be. I know that's not exactly how it's happening or what we're saying. There's an agreement here. But I'm concerned about that as well. Another thing that concerns me, and this may not have anything to do with it, it's just a personal concern of mine, and Fred can stop me if I'm gonna overstep anything here. This property has been for sale for a number of years now. And if I'm not mistaken, the sale price is somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 30% over the assessment that they are not happy with. That to me says they think their property is worth more than assessed value. They may not want to pay taxes on that, but they think it's has greater value than what the assessor says it does. Those are my concerns. That being said, I'm probably going to have to vote to go with the resolution because just in the spirit of saving money for the taxpayers. This is already costing the taxpayers of Sterling a lot of money in law fees. Now it's costing the county taxpayers money in fees. I don't know what our return's gonna be, you know, if this were to go to trial and we won, probably gonna cost us more. I don't know how Kelly feels about this in her department. I don't know if this is gonna set a precedent. I'm open to any rebuttal back from Fred or Kelly, but.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if this is the place to talk about that kind of
No, it
policy.
might not
'Cause but I think you bring a good question, and as I hear the question, because we do this is not unique. This
No,
may be
it's
the
not.
first time it's happened up north in a while, but we had maybe one last month. And the question becomes, and it's a good question, and I think I'm not sure what committee should talk it through, but the question is, should we have a policy on these to kind of go forward as we have, and that policy has been whoever the primary, we take the lead of the primary authority as a rule, and either join them or not join them. But then our policy has been to look at the case and kind of settle if it makes sense, not settle if it doesn't make sense. And it usually makes sense, quite frankly, but that's been kind of the approach. Now, we could approach it from, we could try a thing that, for example, our policy is no, we take everything to court because we're convinced we're right. And there's, that would be and it's worth talking about. What's your committee? Ways and Means? So do you want us to talk about that in Ways and Means? I think it would be a legitimate.
I think it's worth some discussion.
Yeah, so why don't we may refer that for kind of a policy discussion on a larger scale, what we want to do with these kinds of things moving forward. That would be great. So is there any other discussion on this motion? Okay, all in favor then?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, WM3, Mr. Orman made, we discussed this at Ways and Means, and he discussed this issue. We had a prior payment from the wrong party, so this resolution essentially kind of undoes that prior payment to kind of get everything in order. And we asked the advice of Fred, and we thought this was the best avenue to go to clear up this matter. So this had been through committee and was passed there, so I offer it up for consideration.
Was this through committee?
This was discussed at Ways and Means, yeah.
Okay, but there wasn't a motion? Because this says added?
Yeah, I think we just moved it forward
Okay.
here to here. We didn't really make a
There was-
decision.
Discussed and moved forward at Ways and Means, but the resolution was developed about 2 days
So
after.
just to be then clean, could you make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion on WM3.
Great.
Second.
Second, okay, we have a motion and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
WM4 was added 622. We had some discussion about this at Ways and Means. We asked for Mr. Budelman and Mr. Russell to get together to come up with a resolution. This is the resolution. Establishing a policy for the payment of comp time and overtime for the position of confidential secretary, an exempt title under the Fair Labor Standards Act. So this is just added, and it's up for our consideration.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second, we have a motion and a second, any discussion? Mr. Vitale?
I'd like to make an amendment to the resolution. And in the resolve, it says that that it will continue until a new person is hired in those places. My amendment would be that this sunsets at the end of this fiscal year. In my belief, it'll give all people involved time enough to get through this budget season. It'll give time for people to work out with HR or whoever else they need to work out with to have a plan for next year. But we have a number of confidential secretaries that are in the same, kind of the same position, and I'd like it to be even and fair for everybody involved. So my amendment would be for this to sunset at the end of this fiscal year.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Pinckney seconded, and that section, what is it, the paragraph?
It's actually a combination of, in the resolution, resolved, I think B, C, and D address it, and each of those have to be changed just a little bit.
So, do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. So then the amendment is that this goes into effect, but it ends at the end, it ends December 31st.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Ladman?
I know the government moves pretty fast. I don't want our employees to be penalized because, you know, it takes us longer than expected. Anybody who's due payment, or I'd like to see them get paid, I don't know how to word that, Fred.
That was-
Is
I
there
understood
anybody-
that's part of the amendment.
That's what it
Or
is.
not the amendment,
Okay.
that's part of the resolution, right?
Yes, that was discussed at Ways and Means.
Sometimes I don't understand government.
Right.
But they're gonna pay?
Yeah.
As long as they pay.
Right.
All right. Oh, I
Ms.
understand.
Dennison?
My only problem with this is just because it has the same name doesn't necessarily mean they do the same amount of work. So the whole fairness thing, I'm struggling with that a little. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all called legislators, do we all do the same amount of work?
Of course.
We get the same pay.
But this is talking about overtime.
Yeah. Mr. Whitman?
I guess I'm struggling with the amendment. I don't have an issue with it. I'm just wondering if it's necessary. Wouldn't anything we come up with as a plan in the future supersede this anyway?
Not in this case.
It wouldn't change it.
Yeah. Mr. Pinckney?
I think it gives the department heads, 5 months to work on this budget and see what they see necessary for the upcoming year. And they can take care of it themselves. So if they're short and they need more positions or more hours, then let them figure that out and bring that to us.
Okay, thank you. See if there's anyone else wants to speak before you speak again. Does anyone else want to speak? Mr. Baxter?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you just stated that this wouldn't be reversible, is that
No, anything's reversible.
right? So,
No, I think that, maybe I misunderstood the question. I thought the question was this: would the without the amendment, would this reverse itself? And the resolution as it states, as I understand it, would establish this in perpetuity. What the amendment does is it says, look, it ends at the end of the year, and we may continue it based upon what Mr. Pinckney's saying. But that's why I thought I may have misunderstood the question.
I guess my question is,
Wait a minute, let me make sure there's no one else who wants to speak before we double back. Mr. Foley?
Yeah, I think one of the main concerns that I had is kind of addressed. So you have a situation in this overall scheme of the problem where you have confidential secretaries from multiple departments. Some of them work 0 overtime, some of them work 310 hours of overtime per year. When this sunsets, none of them will be able to have overtime, and they'll have a base salary. At that point, I think why it's good the sunsets at the end is because the DA can come to us and say he needs to make up those 300 hours somehow to get the work completed into his office. If that requires another position like legislator Pinckney suggested, then so be it. But that was my initial concern, was that, you know, I mean, Fred has a secretary that's in here that had 188 hours of overtime for 2016. So you would be bringing in new people when this would go down, and some of them would be required to work more hours than others at the same position in different departments for the same pay, which is kind of tough. So I'm glad that this can get worked out, hopefully by the end of the year and during budget time.
I think, Mr. Whitman, you had something else to add?
no, I'm good. I'll just vote no on it.
Ms. Dennison?
So, I wanna make sure I'm perfectly clear. At the end of this year, they would get paid for this year, but at the end of this year, it would go away. So if they work.
Yeah, depending on what the department has them bring forward. That's my understanding, right?
Because I'm confused, because like listening to what Ryan just said or whatever, I mean, I'd rather pay somebody a couple $100 of overtime than a brand-new position with benefits. It's gonna cost us way more than what overtime is, so that's what I'm a little confused about here.
Ms. Vitale?
What this does is gives everybody involved the opportunity to look at the position during budget season and beyond, so that if there's extra hours that there's work that needs to be done, it can even be looked at as maybe another position has to be added, or it can be looked at as that the job needs to be reevaluated as to what the classification in civil service and so on. But it gives everybody involved a good 5 months to work with our HR, work with everybody that needs to make sure in 2018, this isn't another discussion all over again.
Ms. Vitale?
I think that this situation we're in now came about because of the FALSA. Got that right? The overtime pay cap was changed. Prior to that, we had paid people in this position overtime for several years. And then we jump when the federal government says something, then they pull it away, we jump back. It took us several months to get to this decision now. Why would we want to make a decision that requires us to make another decision in a few months? If we want to look at this, we can look at it in our budget, but I would say pass this resolution just the way it is, so that the people that have been getting paid for the last 8 years for the work they did will continue to get paid until we come up with a conclusion, not hang in limbo for 3-4 months while we do a budget and figure out what we're going to do.
Okay. Mr. Lattimore,
I'll second Mr. Baxter's motion.
that wasn't a motion.
Anyways, his thought process is correct.
Okay, thank you. So we ready to vote on the amendment? The amendment in summary would be for it to, for this in effect to, people would get paid overtime this year, but it would not be, it would end December 31st based upon the department heads coming back with whatever their plan is. So, do we need,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, as a legislator, am I able to yield time to other people on the floor?
No.
I'm not.
you are not.
Am I able to hear a department head's discussion or comments on something we are proposing here to get their feedback and?
Yeah, the way the rules work is you are able, as I would understand them, is you're able to ask me to recognize someone.
Uh-huh.
But right now, we're in the middle of a vote, so we're not in the discussion phase. There's a motion on the floor, it's been motioned and seconded, and so I asked people if they wanted to vote. So I understood we were at calling the question. If you don't want to vote, who is it that you would like to be recognized?
I believe that the DA would like to be recognized as part of this.
No, I don't want to get in, no. Let me tell you why, John. It's not the thing. I don't want to get into a discussion of individuals, and that's what it is. If this cannot be about an individual person's pay. If we're going to do that, we need to go into executive session. Do you call for an executive session?
I mean, I think that the DA is probably capable of talking about a position and the required amount of time that it takes to meet those qualifications for the position without discussing specifically the person.
It's a person. It's not a position in this case. It's executives, I think it's
It's
executive
a
session
confidential
material.
secretary in the DA's office, one. And he
It's-
has two separate positions.
If you wish to motion executive session, you may do so, but that's what it would require if we're going to talk about a specific position. Okay. So are we ready to vote on the amendment?
We have a roll call vote.
Okay, roll call vote.
Yeah, one ready.
This is on the amended.
This is on the amendment,
On the amendment.
sunset clause. Correct?
Yes.
Is that? Yep. Tucker Whitman,
No.
Andy Dennison,
No.
Ben Vitale,
Yes.
Grant Kyle,
Yes.
Paul Pinkney,
Yes.
Aileen McNabb Coleman,
Yes.
Joe DeForest,
Yes.
Terry Baxter,
No.
Joseph Bennett,
No.
Frank Reginelli,
No.
Patrick Mahone is excused, Tim Lattimore,
No.
Michael Didio,
No.
Ryan Foley,
Yes.
Keith Patman.
Yes.
Pass.
Okay, passed.
Okay. Are we ready to vote on the motion, or do you want to have more discussion on the motion itself?
Let's vote.
Okay. Does anyone want this or roll call?
Yes.
Okay, roll call on this too, please.
Okay. Tucker Whitman,
Yes.
Ben Vitale,
Yes.
oh, sorry, Andy Dennison,
What are we voting on now?
The motion.
motion is amended.
I had asked.
No.
Ben Vitale,
Yes.
Grant Kyle,
Yes.
Paul Pinkney,
Yes.
Aileen McNabb Coleman,
Yes.
Joe DeForest,
Yes.
Terry Baxter,
No.
Joe Bennett,
No.
Frank Reginelli,
Yes.
Patrick Mahone gets excused, Tim Lattimore,
No.
Michael Didio,
Yes.
Ryan Foley,
Yes.
Keith Batman.
Yes.
Pass.
Passed.
Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, nothing more for Ways and Means. So Health and Human Services, Mr. Forrest?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to present H and H 1 through 3 as a bundle. It's been discussed and approved in committee, and I offer it for consideration.
Does anyone object to bundling these? In that case, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Government operations, Mr. Foley.
Mr. Chair, Government Operations has one resolution that passed in committee. I offer that up tonight.
Okay, is any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Planning.
Mr. Chairman, planning has 8 resolutions before you. PL 5 was revised and discussed and passed at Ways and Means. I'll offer 1 through 8 as a bundle.
Okay, these are bundled 1 through 8. Is there any objection to bundling these? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works.
Mr. Chairman, Public Works has 9 resolutions. They've all been through committees. I would offer them as a bundle.
Does anyone object to this bundle?
It's added at Ways and Means.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Judicial and Public Safety. The,
Mr. Chairman,
thank you.
Judicial and Public Safety has 3 resolutions and through committee and seek approval. Offer as a bundle.
Anyone object to the bundle? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
It's okay.
We have 4 legislative resolutions. I never remember who does these, me or Ways and Means? Okay. So we have we have 4 of these. So Ledge 1 and 2 are fixing days and times for public hearings. Do we need to do those individually? They don't require? No. 2/3, okay. So if I may do bundle 1 and 2, does anyone object to that? So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Bennett, opposed. Ledge 3 was added. This is calling on the governor to immediately convene a special session of the Assembly and if necessary, the Senate, to keep said bodies in session until such time as it takes up and passes the home rule messages of all 53 counties relied upon sales tax extenders. Could I have a motion?
Move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Lattimore?
I'd like to have our treasurer, how much does that affect us by not having that legislation passed?
6 million, roughly, I think.
That's 6 million reasons why we should vote for it.
Okay.
5 million.
5 million?
5-ish, yes.
Okay, it's about 5-ish. I was thinking it was 6-ish, but it's about 5. Yeah. Yes, right, sorry.
Fred, for clarification, at one point you said it was 200,000. Do you know where that figure came from?
That was an erroneous figure. They took the amount of sales tax revenues and took 1% of that instead of taking 25% of the overall revenues. That was a math error.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So, Ledge 4 is motion to authorize the chair to enter into and execute an agreement with CGR to complete the comprehensive organizational assessment for the county and amending the 2017 budget accordingly. I think everyone got a copy of that. Could I have a motion?
Move.
Mr. Baxter, a second.
Second.
Ms.
Sorry.
McNabb Coleman.
Can see.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Whitman and Ms. Lattimore?
This, to me, I've been here for going on 6 years. It seems to be a classic case of exactly how we shouldn't spend money. $75,000. We could hire a full-time employee for a year to tell us what's going on with our efficiency. And I don't know what's been explored. I don't know if we've approached the college, see if they have any efficiency students that might be interested in doing a study on the county for free. Or maybe another college. I think it would be a good case for them to study. I think a lot of us know what the problems are. It's a matter of agreeing on what they are. And they're going to give us a paper with a list that says a lot of what we already know. We have a really hard time with the implementation when it comes to change. I don't feel that this is going to help that. We're still a government. We still are very disorganized. Even when we have it right in front of us, we can't say, let's do it. We'll say, let's do it. It'll take 6 years. And in that 6 years, the path will change 2 or 3 times. And we're almost to that time now. Election's coming up. We're gonna agree to spend $75,000 to head in a direction. Who knows how many people in this body are gonna turn over? Come after the first of the year, right after they're done with this, I've seen it happen. This will go in a file cabinet somewhere. We'll take off in a different direction. Say, we need to make our departments larger. We need to, and there are so many other things in this county we could spend $75,000 on and actually make a difference. This could go towards the Wasco Lake issues. It could go towards our highway issues. There's just so many issues it could go towards. $75,000 would make a pretty big improvement in this building. We might be able to get an elevator that you don't question whether or not the doors are gonna open every time you're on it. I can't support this. I know you guys have put a lot of work into it, that committee, and I do appreciate that, but I can't support these types of expenses.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lattimore?
No comment.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes, I find it hard to spend roughly $15,000 a month for this study and stuff, for the input of these people. And just like Tucker says, I feel that, we've had so many different policies presented to us, and they end up being mothballed and we never apply them. So to me, it's a waste of money, and I will not be supporting it either.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
I'm going to be voting in support. I believe that we need to rely on people who are experts, hiring an individual or anything of that nature, or people who are coming in to do things for free who may not have the expertise. It's not an opinion I want to rely on. I want to rely on people who do this every day, and obviously in other counties who are trying to build efficiencies. I think it's necessary if we're looking for long-term solutions with our buildings and what we're going to make next decisions that are much larger numbers than 75,000. It's tens of millions of dollars of where we're going to, if we're going to fix this building, how we're going to place people, how we're going to make things more efficient. I think this is, the timing's good for this coming up to the next budget season to figure out what we're going to do with our structures and with our staffing and everything. I understand in the past maybe they have been mothballed, but for me, I find it to be an important tool that we need from experts to tell us what they've seen in other places, and we take their opinion or not, but I'd rather have it coming from a group of people rather than from an individual.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dennison?
I'll be supporting it only because I was on the committee and I believe in what this CGR group is talking about, but I also agree with the 2 gentlemen in the back row, because I mentioned it while on the committee, that unless we actually follow through, we will have wasted money. So I hope the hell we don't.
Thank you. Mr. Lattimore?
Mr. Chairman, if we include the scope as being, looking at how this committee or how this board works, I would be in favor of it, and see whether or not a county exec would be added to make it more efficient.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I don't think we can do that. That would require, that changes the whole scope of it. But it's a good suggestion, though. Maybe we can look at it as we go through this. Anything you want before Ms. Whitman speaks again? Ms. Whitman?
I just wanted to request a roll call.
Okay. We ready to vote then? Roll call, please.
Yep.